This is the Lockpicking Lawyer, and the case in front of you contains the coolest and most fun challenge lock that I have ever seen. This was created by Daniel in Australia, the same person who thought up and built this 3-lobed 3-key lock that I'll be featuring sometime in the near future. This challenge lock is so much fun that my 6-year-old son is begging me to play with it. So let's open this up and I will show you what I believe to be the world's first fidget spinner challenge lock. And let me tell you, this thing spins well. My son actually brought out his fidget spinner that we bought at the store to have a contest and see which one spins for longer, and Daniel's creation here won by a wide margin. But you didn't click on this to see me playing, so let's take a look at what we've got here. There are 3 cores soldered to a central hub that contains the bearing. If we look carefully at this, you can see the faces of the cores are color-coded. We have a bronze, silver, and gold core, and I assume that is ascending in difficulty. If we look at it from the side, you can see that each of these cores was shortened from its original length. So these are only 3-pin challenge locks, which is frankly harder to build than a 6 or 7 pinner because it is difficult to get a really hard lock in just 3 pins. So we're going to try to pick each of these open. Then I, of course, will take it apart and show you what's inside. We'll start with the bronze level core. I'm going to use bottom of the keyway tension with this wiper insert and a standard hook from Peterson in 25 thousandths. Okay, one is binding. Got to click there. Still getting some feedback. Okay. Got a little bit of movement on the core. I think 1 is set. 2 was mushy, but when I pushed on it, it gave me a little bit more movement on the core. Then moving on to 3, got a little bit more movement on the core, some counter rotation, and I think we got the first one open. Okay, let's move to the silver core. And binding on the first one, got 1 click. Still more feedback, and we just dropped into a really deep false set. Now take a look at that. That is huge as far as false sets go. And I've picked this before, and I can tell you that when it drops into this false set, pins 2 and 3 simply will not move. I'm assuming there's some sort of really deep undercut there. So what I have to do is reset this and pick it in the opposite order that I normally do. I'm going to have to pick 2 and 3 before I touch number 1, or this simply will not open. There's some really nasty pins in the back and probably some modifications to the core as well. Okay, I think I got 3, and 2 is giving me some trouble. There we go. I think I got 2. 3 still feels set, so let's try to drop number 1 now. And there we go. We got the silver core open. Now let's move on to the gold core. Okay, click out a 1. I think that's it. Click out a 2. And not much movement, but I think he feels set. Then 3. Okay, got to click there. Let's move back to the beginning. Click out a 1, and we opened it up. Okay, let's take this guy apart and see what's inside. Let's relock all of these since I do have the key. And let me actually show you the mechanism of the fidget spinner first. The 2 finger holds are threaded together. I don't know if these were custom made. If they were, that was really, really impressive work. And they simply stay in place there. And then the bearing around which this rotates is held in place by 3 Allen set screws around the side. So let's just loosen them up half a turn each, and hopefully this will come out. And indeed it does. So let's give you a close-up of this really nice little bearing here. Okay, now let's take these clips off and start gutting this. We'll start with the bronze core. Okay, I'm going to drop a shim in here. It's a practice I've started on all challenge locks because you just never know what's in these things these days. You guys have gotten so darn creative in creating challenge locks. Let's just say in this arms war, the defense is progressing faster than the offense. Okay, the first pin is a homemade serrated, so is the second, so is the third, and it looks like we have an undercut in slot 1 and a serration or threading in slot 3. Okay, let's get the driver pins out of here. Okay, we have a ringed spool in slot 1. Looks like that could have come from a Dom lock, though it could also be homemade. It's hard to tell. Then in slot 2 we have a homemade T-pin. Then in slot 3 we have a homemade serrated pin, and it looks like all the springs are the same, if not, well, similar if not the same. Then if we look at the core here, or the Bible, it looks like we have threading in slots 2 and 3. I don't see anything in slot 1. Okay, let's move on to the silver core now. Okay. Getting this shim in here now. That doesn't want to move for me. Maybe that shim's not quite in all the way. Recall that this is the one that was giving me by far the most trouble. Okay, I think, nope. Gosh, that shim is really tight in there. Well, let's see what happens. Gosh, and the answer is nothing. Wow, okay, got this one out, and whoa, we have a lot of modifications to this core. Let me drop the pins out of here first, and then we can take a look at this. Homemade serrated, and homemade serrated. Let me flip these around, and then I'll give you a close-up of that core. Okay, as I suspected, we have some really deep undercuts on slots 2 and 3, and some threading in slot 1. Wow, a lot of work in here. Nice job, Daniel. Now let's get the driver pins out. I'm assuming we've got some spools in slots 2 and 3 to take advantage of that undercut. And slot 1 is threaded. I'm sorry, serrated. Okay, a spool in slot 1. And a spool in slot 2 and a very light spring. And a spool in slot 3 and a normal spring. Let's see if he did anything with the Bible in this one. And it doesn't look like he did. Those look like they've been left standard. Okay, now for the gold core. Oh, this one's giving me trouble as well. Probably because there's some nasty pins and sharp edges in there. Okay, I think I've got this. Okay, good, it worked out. I think I've got this. They're famous last words when gutting challenge locks. Okay, so we have a standard in slot 1, a 2-piece pin in slot 2, okay, with one piece fitting inside of the other. That's pretty cool. And slot 3 is another standard. Let's take a look at this one. Looks like we have some undercutting in slot 3 and nothing in slots 1 and 2. Okay, number 1 is a homemade T-pin. Number 2 is a standard pin. Put the spring next to it. And number 3, a homemade spool to take advantage of that undercut. And let's take a look at the Bible here. I think it was this one right here. And it looks like we have threading in slot 1, and that's it. Okay, I should have marked these to make sure I put them back in the right spots, but I'll probably just watch the video before I put it back together. Okay, let me give you a close-up of all of this. Okay, for our pins, slots 1, 2, and 3 have the bronze core. You can see we have serrated key pins, a ringed spool for the first driver pin, a T-pin in slot 2, and a homemade serrated pin in slot 3. Then we move over to 4, 5, and 6. That is our our silver core. Again, serrated key pins, a homemade serrated driver pin in slot 1, and some spools in slots 2 and 3. And then over to the gold core that's in slots 7 and 8. And we have 2 standard key pins in the first and third slot, and a 2-piece key pin in slot 8. In slot 2. And then for the driver pins, we have a T-pin in the first, a standard in the second, and a homemade serrated spool in the third. Okay, moving over to these cores. In the bottom left is the bronze core, and we have an undercut in slot 1, standard slot 2, threading in slot 3. The silver core, which is on the top left, is really incredible. We've got a threaded chamber 1. Then we have the undercutting that's very, very deep, that's designed to give you a really deep false set in slots 2 and 3. Absolutely incredible work. And then the gold core, standard slots 1 and 2, and an undercut in slot 3. So Daniel, thank you very, very much for sending this my way. This is by far the most fun challenge lock I have ever received. So everyone else, if you do have any questions or comments, please put them below. If you like this video and would like to see more like it, please subscribe. And as always, have a nice day. Thank you.